Welcome, everyone. I am A.M. Adair, and I will be your host for Silverback Publishing's In Conversation with Steve Stratton. Now, all of this, of course, is leading up to the publication of Steve's novella, A Warrior's Path. And today, Steve is going to be talking with Colonel Mike Bennett. Gentlemen, welcome. Now, these two fine gentlemen have quite the resume. And while I would love nothing more than to sit back and hear all your stories, time is precious. So I will do what I can to keep us moving and hopefully avoid anything that will need to be redacted later. No promises. But gentlemen, thank you so much. And let's get to it. To start off, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we're all veterans. And for me personally, it has an influence on pretty much everything I do. That time in service, whether I want it to or not, left a mark. Steve, would you agree?
Absolutely. I didn't have a lot of adult leadership growing up. I was sort of on my own. And so I really did mature in the military, learn a lot of those core values and things that I believe in today. Really were sort of set in the ossifying stone that I am now. And yeah, so I'm sort of set in my ways, but thanks to the U.S. Army in my case.
But how about you, Mike?
Yeah, no doubt that's where I grew up, or matured. I really almost hate to think where I would be had I not gone into the military. I left high school, went to college, but I'm not really sure I developed in college. I got through, but I think without any doubt, I became something during the course in the Army. There's no doubt.
I'd say most kids don't actually develop in college either. It's, a party until you black out, and then you either get it together and get your grades up or you get kicked out. Now, the military doesn't really allow that to happen. You have to embrace the culture and you have to grow up. So was that in the cards for you all along, or did something make you choose a life of service?
It's back to me.
Start.
I grew up during the time, I kind of had an idea maybe military in 1979, because that's the Iranian hostage crisis. Yes, I did go to college, but that was like the first little nudge towards service. While I was in college, Grenada kicked off, and that was kind of the final straw. I finished college, but I knew my path was pretty much set at that point. That is where I wanted to go. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up.
When I grew up, I still haven't. I plan on living forever, so I will be a child forever. Steve, how about you? Have you grown up?
Nah, that's no fun. For me, in my case, I grew up in a Navy Merchant Marine family, and just get a little green, in the deep water. I'm okay in a canoe or kayak, but the Army for me really became interesting because I wanted to see the world. I was caught in what I thought was this little small place in Northern California, and the options were logging or fishing, kind of thing. And so I wanted to get out and see the world. And by the luck of whatever, I started volunteering and getting into some interesting positions. But it was, for me, it was, I think the service thing was always there, but not, I thought I wanted to see the world. It was more that kind of thing. But I think the service thing was deeply embedded because of my family history.
That's fair enough. What time frame was that, your time of service?
Couple of years before Mike. So I started in the Army. I went to basic training in 73. And there was still the thought then that I might go to Vietnam. But once I ended up with a Yankee white clearance and a couple of other things, there was no going overseas. So
Fair enough. Now, it is interesting that you both were in service during, the late 70s into the 80s, and yet here you both are in present day writing military thrillers. How did you make that transition?
Back to me.
I'll go first. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Well, it was just 30 years, so it kind of started for me, mid 80s, which brought me to 2015, all the way through. So just, you hang around long enough. And as we had said before, it has such a huge impact on it. It stays with you. So yeah, of course, that's kind of what I'm writing about.
Yeah, in my case, the inciting incident that I ended up starting writing about in 2019 happened in 93. And because I'd gone through so many project management, product management courses, I did PowerPoints, I did storyboards. And oh yeah, Emma knows what a storyboard is. And I did PowerPoint storyboards. I even did a Gantt chart with critical path, because that's all I knew really was, and not a great way to outline a book or a story. But finally, in 2019, my wife said, well, why don't you just start writing? Don't worry about being good at it. Just write the story. And it's my wife, Ellie, that got me to move from being a voracious reader to actually writing.
I love that. And I love that about your wife. Now, that's actually an interesting transition, though, to go from, being a PowerPoint ninja in the service and doing all the charts that we know and love so well into writing. And, anybody's going to tell you there's a process to it. So are you structured or are you a pantser? Somewhere in between. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I do an outline, like a 1 or 2 sentence by chapter outline, and then give myself the freedom to pants in between that. And yeah, I've changed whole sections out and moved things around, because sometimes I'll just write in the flow and it's like, well, that's good, but it doesn't really belong there. So I give myself the freedom to pants and move around. My first book, though, we have a wall of cookbooks, 1,600 cookbooks in our house. And so I had sticky notes, yellow stickies on every part of that bookcase, trying to figure out the flow of my first book and do things. So I went back to the PowerPoint and the PM to sort of figure it out. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That sounds a little OCD.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
Or,
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know. Mike, how about you? Are you a structure man or are you the fly by the seat of my pants man?
I think in this case, because I lack the mental ability to retain anything, I have to kind of lay it all out. So I'm looking at, here's the end state, downstream in time. So, then I maybe backwards playing, I start moving it back, and everything kind of has a time slot. There might be, so I'll write little modules that, I write something, I kind of like that, but does that belong here in this place of time? So what I've done, and it's, I guess structured, I lack the software, I can't do a Gantt chart sort of thing, but I'll put it all out on a spreadsheet, but it's essentially kind of what Steve is saying is I'll write a little thing on a sticky note. I'm just putting it into a digital format. And then I might move that around to the left, to the right on a chronology. So yeah, kind of structured, kind of starts with an idea and then where do I want to end up? But to do all that, I do have to put it in some kind of format that I can go back to and see it. I literally have to see it to doesn't make any sense. And then write.
That's fair enough. And I imagine for both of you, kind of the discipline of having to sit down, of having to do a process, regardless of what that process is, was something that probably has been going on for a very long time, from time in service all the way through time in the writer's chair. Is that a fair statement, Steve?
Oh, absolutely. Um, I I know I got it from my mother. She used to sit down and read a book, and we'd have to tap her on a shoulder to get her attention. She's so focused. And the other day, I was doing some editing, and finally Ellie knocked on the door, said, "Do you want dinner?" And that's how deep I'd got into. I'd gone all day, hadn't paid attention to anything, and like 8 hours later, it's like groaning to get out of the chair. But yeah,
Oh no,
that
I do know. If it's more than 20 minutes and I'm not stretching, I'm feeling it. So
absolutely, yeah. So the military helped focus that, especially the units, the kind of units that Mike were in, I were in, really helped develop that focus.
now, Mike, you were all the way up until 2015. It was structure. It was, you have things to do, certain times, certain days.
Yep.
Everything's kind of laid out for you. Did you continue that?
Well, kind of like very similar to what Steve was saying, I also got into program management. So any of that kind of stuff carried forward into being a PM. Same kind of, structure. And I also ended up being a systems engineer. So yes, more structure. And if you go back to what I said before, I said end state. I mean, that's all military stuff to us, right? Oh yeah, I remember that, So it's all just kind of one blur. Very similar disciplines. Writing an op-ord is probably a little bit different than writing a book, but I mean, you do end up kind of applying that. Hey, I've done this before. I did it this way. It worked, and it carried on.
It's like my soul shriveled a little bit when you said writing an op-ord. So for the civilians who are watching this, let's try to put this into context. Say, Steve, you want to try to take on, the fun that's writing an op-ord and how that might make you a better writer?
Yeah, it's funny. I also did some technical writing, some product marketing materials and stuff like that, even proposals back to the government. And it's all different types of writing. You learn present tense, some other things, but writing a book is way different. The 5-paragraph op order, you're you're telling your troops, essentially what the mission is, and a bunch of other details that are pretty important about, how you're going to get there, your logistics, all this kind of stuff. But essentially, it is a form of storytelling that you need your troops to buy into, right? You're giving them the information so they can, with you, accomplish the mission. And so it's funny to think of the op-ord and or a sit rep and all the different things that we have in the military, spot reports, and stuff like that, whether you're in ops or intel. But they do give you a sense of being concise and what's important. I would say that when I started my writing journey, my writing was sparse. I had hopped a lot, but it was really sparse. Now I have some vocabulary and more words, so I'm more better, I think. But
Your
that's
books are fantastic.